did it. No matter who you are, you can make a positive impact on the world.
I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
And that quote helped to give you strength.
Nurse Heather is only on CannabisRadio.com.
Good morning, Cannabis Nurse Heather.
Just Say No, spelled K-N-O-W, is back with more conversation about curing and healing with cannabis, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan Hunt from MJWellness.com, and we've been talking to Dr. Jennifer Burns about digestion and marijuana therapy. Dr. Burns, I have a question about probiotics. I take probiotics. Yes. I think a lot of people are taking probiotics, and we do so because we're told it's good for your gut. What do probiotics do in there, and does it complement marijuana therapy?
Okay, so what probiotics do is that it's actually good gut flora that's being reintroduced back into not only the small intestines, but the large intestines. Previous to history, all we had was just colonizing for the small intestines, and then they finally realized, hey, we also need stuff for the large intestines too, because we got good gut flora in there as well, which is when they came up with the probiotics to hit both the small and the large intestines. What it does is that it can actually help some people lose weight. It gives a lot of people energy, and it can actually help heal the gut because of all the different types of bacteria that are in there. Some of them aren't really supposed to be overproducing like they're supposed to be, and so that's what the probiotics do, is get in there, kind of regulate everything, and just kind of help to heal up the colon. Your second question of probiotics and marijuana, can they work together? Most of the time, yes. Sometimes people, like with anything else, can end up with a side effect with the probiotics and also with the marijuana together. So it really depends. But the majority of the people actually end up doing really well because the marijuana helps with the anti-inflammatory aspect. It actually helps to boost the immune system. The colon has like the largest amount of immune regulation and blood circulation around it than almost any other part of the body. And then you're adding probiotics in to actually help recolonize the gut. Both of them together can actually work fairly well.
So if you were to say what the most effective thing is to manage these conditions, I know that you've been recommending or giving recommendations for marijuana. Do you think it's diet, probiotics, marijuana, any anti-stress that you can do in your life? How do people get better?
With a body as complex as it is, you need to have a multidimensional approach. So doing all that stuff, finding something that relaxes you, putting in the probiotics, looking at food and how you deal and react with stress are all things that I do in my clinic to help people out, because you just can't do one thing and have it affect every other aspect that you have.
So speaking of in your clinic, what people come in for, and specifically as it relates to marijuana, what other conditions do you see that people are using marijuana successfully for?
Glaucoma, hepatitis C, because some people have flare-ups with that. Chronic pain, we have a lot of people that helps out with. We have people who have multiple sclerosis where that's helping them out. Wasting syndrome, where people just aren't eating. It's been helping with the side effects for chemo and radiation, for the people to be able to have the energy to recover from it. I mean, there's just this whole world gamut. Migraine headaches, it's been helping with that. Even tension headaches. There's just a lot of benefit that I've seen in the last 5 years since we've had this medical marijuana process in place that has really helped out.
And what do you think about using marijuana for cancer? We hear a lot about, and it's Breast Cancer Month, so I thought I'd ask you that question. And I know there's a lot of people who use tinctures to control or help even cure, if I can say that, breast cancer. Do you have patients, and do you see them using it successfully?
Yeah, so actually, the word cure is so, final. We try not to use that word, but it has definitely helped a lot of people out, either with the side effects or being able to decrease the size of tumors. But they're also doing this in conjunction with their standard chemo radiation or even adjunct therapies as well, because we do a lot of education as far as nutrition goes, intravenous nutrients that they can get along with the marijuana. But between the combination of everything, we've definitely seen improvement with a lot of the cancer patients.
So we have a little time left, but I was wondering, do you use marijuana?
I do not. My medical condition that I have is not at the point where it warrants it, but I definitely have seen the benefits of it for a lot of people. I've actually had a lot of my patients ask me, well, you use it? I'm like, no. No, why not? And I'm like, well, because, one, I can't really use it, since I don't have my card, because my medical condition, yes, would be on there, but I've been able to manage it so well that I don't have to be on it at this point. But you never know, in the future, I may need to, so if anything else comes up. So, of course, it's never ruled out.
Gotcha. In conditions like IBS, one of the things I really worry about is as I get older that it might get worse. Do you see these digestive problems getting worse, or are people able to maybe realize they have this disease, take some control over it, and it gets maybe more stable over time, or does it degenerate over time?
Well, here again, it depends. Sometimes if I'm really able to connect with my patient, be able to make some lifestyle changes, they can maintain, or they can be in remission for years. So for those that still have the heavy stress and they don't have the lifestyle change and do what they need to do, it can be, like maintain for a bit, but then they're going to get the flare-ups. So it really depends on each person, on what they do and how invested they are in their health, what exactly the body's going to react to.
So people who are not in states where marijuana therapy is legal, what would you suggest they do to control? I know that I've gone on steroids to control flare-ups, but that has a whole host of other problems. What do you think the main thing is for people to do?
Ooh, here again, they have to look at stress. How do they handle stressors? There are herbs out there like glycine, which is an amino acid, to help rebuild the gut lining. You've got HMF forte, which is biceroyal, which has actually been shown to help reduce IBS inflammation. It is kind of like a super probiotic. That here again, looking at diet, do you have enough fiber, or do you need to cut back on the fiber? What inflammatory foods do you have? And that you have to look at. Sometimes there needs to be an elimination rotation diet. You may need to take glucose out of the diet. I've seen a lot of patients who are actually sensitive to glucose, yet the food allergy testing doesn't say otherwise. It says that they have no gluten sensitivity. So those are some things that we have to look at. Is your coffee dehydrating you enough to cause more inflammation? So we may need to switch them over to green tea, which is actually probably a little bit better than coffee because of the antibiotic aspect that's in it. And also there's a whole bunch of anti-inflammatory herbs that can be used. One of the ones that I really like is called Ebrogas. It's from Europe, and that one is specifically formulated to help calm down inflammation in the gut. And so that one's a really good too. So there's all sorts of stuff that we can do as naturopaths to really help with that.
Well, it's great information, and we are out of time. I thank you so much for walking us through this today, Dr. Burns. And I wanted to thank everybody for joining us on Just Say No. We'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Jennifer Burns, and our producer for finding these great guests and making this show possible. You can download episodes of our program by going to cannabisradio.com or subscribing to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. You can follow the show on Facebook or Google+. For more information about our guests and to read more about patients using marijuana to control their symptoms, and also to talk to me, you can go to mjwellness.com. And you can find Dr. Burns at the Nitre Center, and that's TheBienetre Center.com. And join us next week when we'll tackle more conditions that can be managed using marijuana therapy.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited. puff, puff. Share it with a friend. CannabisRadio.com.
BBC News with David Austin. Russia and Egypt have said there is no evidence to confirm the British theory that the Russian airline disaster in Sinai on Saturday was caused by a bomb. Britain has been defending its decision to cancel flights from the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, from where the flight took off, saying it had to act on intelligence, indicating that a bomb may have been to blame. All 224 people on board the flight were killed. The U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter has visited a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. China's foreign ministry described the visit as provocative and a threat to the sovereignty and security of other countries. The Real Madrid football star Karim Benzema is appearing before an investigating magistrate in France today as part of an alleged blackmail case. Investigators want to determine if Benzema had any involvement in an attempt to extort money from his fellow French international Mathieu Valbuena after a sex tape got into the hands of suspected blackmailers. The opposition leader in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, has said she will run the government if her party wins the country's first openly contested election in 25 years. Myanmar's military-drafted constitution bars her from the presidency, but she said she would head the government and appoint a president who would work in accordance with her party's policies. The biggest anti-corruption trial in Italy for years has opened in Rome after the city's finances and services were brought to the brink of collapse. Mafia bosses, local politicians and businessmen are among some 4 suspects accused of pocketing millions of dollars by rigging Rome's public services. A district in the Japanese capital, Tokyo, has issued the country's first certificate recognizing same-sex partnerships. The certificates don't have the legal status of marriage, but they're designed to encourage landlords and hospitals to treat same-sex couples in the same way as married ones. That's the latest BBC News.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. UK Prime Minister David Cameron is hosting Egypt's President Sisi for talks in London as Britain grounds its flights out of Sharm el-Sheikh over security concerns. Britain's Foreign Secretary now says there is a significant possibility the crash of a Russian plane in Egypt was caused by a bomb. The flight from Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg came down with 224 people on board, all of whom died. Egypt has dismissed claims a militant group with links to the Islamic State could have been responsible. Rachel Venables is at Luton Airport, from where flights to Sharm el-Sheikh have been cancelled.
Any of the passengers who turn up, they will be told to just go back home. That's as the government try and work out if the Russian airliner was brought down by a bomb on Saturday. So a plane full of passengers which did leave Luton under 24 hours ago. A flight left yesterday on time, and all of the people who arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh just after 6 yesterday would have got off the plane, basically got down the steps, got into the airport, checked on their phones and seen that all flights to and from the area have been cancelled for the time being.
UK tourist Helen, who is in Sharm el-Sheikh, says she will try not to let it affect her future travel plans, though.
You could be anywhere and these sort of things happen, unfortunately, in the world that we live in these days. So it's not going to change anything. You just have to keep your wits around you, and at least we know that the government and everyone are taking these measures and they're looking out for us.
Well, reporter Theo Usherwood is at Downing Street for us ahead of David Cameron's talks with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
The chance to seek assurances that he needs on Egypt's security situation. He'll undoubtedly be asking what extra measures is President Sisi going to put in place to safeguard British tourists. The Egyptian Foreign Minister Shama Shukri has already spoken out against Mr. Cameron's decision to ground that flight, ground all flights, describing that decision as premature and unwarranted.
In other news now, and a major rescue operation is going on in Lahore in Pakistan to save dozens of people who are thought to be trapped after a factory collapsed there. At least 7 people are thought to have died. The factory collapsed on Wednesday under construction. Cranes and bulldozers are now being used, and the army has been brought in to help the rescue efforts. The opposition leader in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, says she would be above the president